Hello. Welcome to Real Film Snobs. I'm Brian Michael.
And I'm Angela Yeager. We have a great show for you this week. We have a musical. We have a documentary, as we always do. We have two superhero movies, so more than our usual. One animated, one just sort of. And we're going to start off with a movie you saw the clip for at the top of the show, Wild Rose. This is about an aspiring country singer from Scotland who is grappling with raising her kids after she just got out of prison and trying to make a new start for herself. She ends up working for a wealthy woman who kind of helps her get her first big break and believes in her. But she's trying to pursue her dreams of becoming a country star and going to Nashville at the same time that she's trying to earn the trust back of her two kids who didn't get to see her for a while she was in prison. So this is a country musical of sorts, and it stars Jessie Buckley as the character of Rose, though that's the Wild Rose in the name, and Julia Walters, who is a stalwart of English cinema, who most people, once you see her, you go, oh yeah, that lady, who plays her mother in a terrific supporting role. Now this was one going in. I didn't know much about it. This has been a little sleeper for the summer, very critically acclaimed. Of course, showing at our local art house theater. And I went in just sort of with I didn't say I'd have high hopes because I really didn't know what to expect, but I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. And one of the things that I really liked about it is that we've seen this story before. Star is Born, for instance. The young,
Sure.
The young
Up-and-comer.
up and coming person trying to make their way in the world, and usually it revolves around like making it big somehow. And I really like the twist that this movie had on that, because it becomes more about making it where you belong, making it where it's right for you personally, and I really loved that twist.
Home.
Home.
That's the name of the last song there. Yeah, I had big expectations going to this film. Jessie Buckley, a young actress I had seen from last year in a little movie that few people saw called Beast. And there's actors that can do a lot with dialogue, like Samuel L. Jackson. There's actors that that can do a lot without dialogue, someone like Ryan Gosling. And in Beast, she was this character who was very taciturn and didn't speak a lot, but she had such an interesting face. You could constantly see her character thinking her way through the situations of what was going on, and it was just surprising every step along the way. So she comes on like a hurricane in this movie. She's getting out of prison. She's loud. She's obnoxious. She sings, and my God, does she have a voice? Not like Meryl Streep. I can sing in a movie musical, as long as no one is more powerful than me.
Good voice.
She has an actual fantastic voice. Apparently, she was part of some reality show contest, yada yada, somewhere in England. But she is someone to really watch. I really just could not take my eyes off her. Though she is surrounded by an amazing supporting cast, I certainly love the lady that she works for when she's the housekeeper. The lady who owns the house there is a wonderful actress. I didn't write her name down. I really loved what she did. But so she has two children. She's just out of prison, and she wants to go to Nashville to be a star. And it's like, well, you have responsibilities. Mom's like, I've been taking care of your kids. You've been doing this. You're not,
Yeah.
And so along the way, we see her struggling with decisions, making bad decisions, which were so tough. But then there are also the personal ones that you could kind of, you're used to it. It all kind of, you want it to all work out like a movie. Let's just, shouldn't it all just work out? Give her a break and let's do this. But they show the stumblings and the fumbles and the accomplishments and the realizations that come along the way with her maturing. Right. It's not that she gets weighted down with decisions or the responsibilities. Right. She matures.
She gets her priorities.
It's
right
one thing for, in a movie where we see a lot of arcs, rarely is it maturity. It's usually like, oh, I've got to learn how to wax on, wax off, and fight the bully or something like that. Nothing against the Karate Kid, but this was something where she matures and takes a hold of her responsibilities and puts her life in order. And I love that, but still holding on to her dreams and hopes because, my God, when she sings, it just, they do such a great job of doing a close-up. They've got the light in the background. It just kisses her face. It just really romanticizes it. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, it's a really good movie, and you're right. I think that the fact that it's realistic, but it still has a very hopeful, this is a really good feel-good movie, I would say. Because,
oh, yes.
Yeah, it's very uplifting without being cheesy at the end.
Exactly.
And that's what I was worried about. I'm like, oh, gosh, she's going to go to Nashville, and then she's going to make it big, and, or the opposite could happen, like her dreams are destroyed. And at one point you think maybe that's the way it's going, because she realizes, well, I've got to take care of these kids. I've got to give up my dreams. But, her mom has something to say about that, and I thought that was a really powerful scene. So it's not one of these movies, like some of those horrible Kate Hudson movies that we had to review back in the day, where the woman has to,
Oh.
sorry to bring that up, where the woman has to give up her entire
Oh.
career, everything she wants, just for the kids either.
Yeah.
She starts to go that direction, but then her mother starts to realize, oh, she's so unhappy because she's not doing what she's good at. And so I love that they struck a balance with that. It wasn't like, oh, you can have everything, but she was like, no, I can have this, what makes sense for me.
You know, the trip is made. I don't want to give too much into that. I don't talk too much about that. But when the trip is made, there's so many little details, like the CDs in the trunk of the taxi driver, which I loved that.
Yeah.
And little comments that are made here and little things. And it was so realistic as opposed to, some big movie star goes in and just goes, oh, you're supposed to be this. And nothing against Stars Born. I love that movie. But this was very realistic. And I love the fact that it, without just, taking the wind out of her sails or just being horrible or, just getting mugged or something like that.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like a realization of things that are going on and the reality of the situation. And it isn't just, it's not what you think. We're not giving away the ending of this movie. It's, it's just a recalibration of what was important or what that dream is. And, as you get older, your dreams evolve. And that's what we kind of see here as well. And I really love that. Now, did you download the soundtrack? Did you listen to any more of the music? Oh, see, I did.
Oh,
I
you-
went out.
you
Yeah,
like the
I
soundtrack,
immediately.
yeah.
Her voice
Now, a
is
lot
just
of the
so
songs
good.
are not her singing in the movie, right? She's listening to other singers.
Yes, yeah. And and there's some really good ones too, and I really like that. And she does some cover ones, and
yeah, and it's like country,
very
the
cool.
kind that I like. So
Country- I see-
Kitty Wells or
I call that country
well,
western.
what I consider it is it's not pop country, which is what I consider most
which is country.
modern country.
It's the
today.
Eagles, yeah.
Well, just any of the new stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, any of the Keith or any of the stuff people
it's
listen to.
the
that
Eagles
I kind of-
light. It's
Yeah,
I like country
pop
western.
country I don't care for, and but this is like real country,
Twangy.
which is why it's also funny that she still thinks that she's going to go to Nashville, and I'm thinking that's not.
That's not.
Because her band is like pedal steel, it's all old
yeah.
school, and I'm thinking that's not.
I
what
would
they're
have liked to have
listening
seen
in
a
Nashville.
little
They got
more
keyboards and
of
electric guitars and
Glasgow. I would like to have seen a little more of the music scene of her hometown, because you were saying that it's a big music scene there, and for them to even have a country western bar in that town was interesting.
And
And I like to have seen a little more of that.
Opry. I mean,
yeah,
the
that was
BBC
fun.
guy kind of references it when she says she's from Glasgow and she rolls her eyes. He's like, "What? Glasgow's a great music town." So
Yes.
that's the first thing
Yeah.
you get of what's to come, which I
Really, really
like.
cool.
So, yeah, good movie. Highly
wonderful
recommend.
film. Really recommend that one. Oh, so let's take a look. I'm only going to say two words I never thought I'd say on the show. Hail Satan. Let's look at the clip. Okay, so if you are a regular viewer of the show, you'll say, isn't this the third time you guys are talking about this film? Because we had our Sundance correspondents talk about this film. We recently had Angela go out to the Ashland Film Festival.
yeah.
And you came on
about
here
this
and
film.
talked about this film. And now it finally came to our town, so I had to check this out because I kept hearing everyone talking about this film, so we had to review it. This is a documentary by Penny Lane, world's coolest name, by the way. And it's a look at the quick rise to fame of the Satanic Temple. And that's the Satanic Church, and it's many congregations that are popping up around not just the United States but around the world, and it kind of shows that what the organization is doing. And now, of course, some of you have already turned off the television or are just appalled right now, but for the rest of you that are actually paying attention, because you're actually going to listen and hear me out. It's very interesting because it certainly is a church, it's a congregation of people like-minded, but they're also doing a lot of political things and things for helping their community, which makes you a church. And it was very interesting because they're doing a lot of things to kind of thumb their nose and to aggravate those who they feel are organized religions that they feel have kind of lost their way and kind of having corporatizations, money put in there, and kind of losing their sense, and certainly the separation of church and state, because the main story of this film is where the 10 Commandments, the big pillars in granite that are put in front of courthouses on state land, they feel that it was because of religious freedom they should have theirs. And so, of course, they've made this amazing satanic, oh my gosh, the statue is too, you have to see it to believe it, it's too
Goat
funny. Yeah,
figure.
I forget what they call it, but it's some big goat god with two children on the side. And so they, of course, then go into the court system and say, if you're going to put that up, then you get this. And of course, then they retract that, and so they've done what they're wanting to do. So that's a big part of that. And then they cover some of the other things that they have done as an organization, and they even have some other fallen satanic angels that were some of the churches were going too. One of the women was going too far and was preaching violence, and of course they're not for that. They're about nonviolence and making a stand and making a point.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. If you're open-minded and you're educated, this would be something. And I have a lot of friends who are very religious, go to church every week, and they would find this movie very interesting and
Right.
and funny and
'Cause
challenging.
It's really not about about Satan per se. I mean,
No.
even the leader said this is for him about the separation of church and state and the encroaching idea that the U.S. is becoming a theocracy, a country ruled by religion, when the founding fathers made it very clear it was supposed to be separation of church and state. That's one of their main missions. And because in order to be, if they were just a political organization, they wouldn't be able to get into some of these places they can get into as a church. Because
Correct.
as a registered church, you get, for instance, tax exempt status, and you get to, so they're able to challenge a lot of things as a church. For instance, if a church says, we're going to put something up here, then they're able to say, we're going to put something up there, which they wouldn't be able to do if they were just a regular political organization. So I thought that was very interesting. I also thought it was interesting how the group becomes essentially almost a, kind of just a place for outcasts of all kinds. They interview a lot of the people, why they went to it. There were people who, maybe they grew up in the deep South in the Bible Belt and they were gay and they just felt, isolated, or someone who was trans and felt isolated, or someone who was a feminist and grew up in a strict, patriarchal household who said, I don't like this. I don't like the fact that I'm treated different because I'm a woman. And so all these different people. And one of the things I like about the Satanic Temple is that it's, one of their tenets is treat everyone the way it's very much about equal treatment for all people. It's very pro gay, it's very pro human rights, it's, et cetera. And so they really like that about it. So it's not exactly what you would think. Now there is some, the one gal, the one that ends up getting in trouble with their groups, they have some crazy ceremonies and stuff too, which kind of makes it entertaining.
Yes.
So, yeah, and the entertaining part of it is also the fact when they show up to these things, how riled up they make everyone.
Oh my gosh, some of those reactions are absolutely hilarious, and people get, we're not even trying to hear the message or hear what they're saying. They just automatically make these assumptions, and they start yelling at them and screaming at them and getting very angry. And of course, they just sit there and just like, okay, yeah, sure, all right, bye, you got to go now.
And it shows that they're very successful. In my home state of Arizona, for instance, the Phoenix City Council apparently used to open all their city council meetings with a prayer before they started the city council meeting, and they went to challenge that, and they said, well, if you're going to allow a prayer, a Christian prayer, then we want to be able to do our satanic prayer at one of the next city council meetings. And the creates this whole fervor. Are you really going to allow a satanic prayer before in order to avoid allowing them to do that, then they just ban having prayer altogether and just do a moment of silence for anybody's religious faith, which really is the most fair, right? Because it's the city council, it's not the religious.
Exactly.
So it is a very interesting documentary.
A very interesting point of view,
people.
and that's what's nice about documentaries and films.
Yeah.
So next we're going to look at Spider-Man: Far From Home. We're a little late on this one, but we get around to movies eventually. So let's take a look at the clip. What? Another superhero movie? Yay, Brian! Poor Angela. So this is Spider-Man: Far From Home, where Peter Parker. Now, how did he become Spider-Man? Do we know how? Do you don't need to explain this again? Because they didn't explain it in the first Spider-Man of this one. This is the third reboot. They didn't explain how it happened. So I just assume Angela knows what happens here. And so Peter Parker now, as the world deals with the aftermath of Endgame, Angela didn't see it, so she might be a little lost, but it's okay. And dealing with the pressure of now that Iron Man and several of the Avengers are now gone, that a heavy weight is now put on Spider-Man to be the leader. Well, he's still a junior in high school, people, actually going into his senior year. So during summer break, he just wants to go on a European trip. He just wants to get a girlfriend with Mary Jane, and he just wants to be left alone. But Nick Fury, of course, comes with him because there's a new threat to the world and a new superhero, Mysterio, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, who's along for the ride. And this one actually kind of goes back to the roots of Spider-Man, where you would see him dealing with just being a teenager and trying to save, and also having to save the neighborhood and or the world, but having to balance the two. I like this movie. I didn't like it as much as the first one, which you enjoyed, by the way. And I believe the last two Spider-Man movies, which we're going to get to one here in a little bit, you enjoyed both of them as well. This one doesn't add too much to it because really we don't need so much more added to it. I just like the adventure of it. It takes a little bit. There's some slow spots in this movie that I thought were kind of surprising. They didn't tighten that up. No. But when you get to the minute mark it does, then all of the Marvel Universe movies hit 3,000 minutes. And I love you 3,000. You don't know what that means. So, but all the nerds at home do. Points. Yeah, Taylor knows what I'm talking about. So, so whenever we sit here and we talk about a movie and Marissa Tomei is in a film, we go, why isn't there movies with more Marissa Tomei? And we say Jake Gyllenhaal, we're like, you know what, why can't more movies have Jake Gyllenhaal? This is what we're getting here in this film. So really what you asked for has now happened. And there's a young actress
She's in
who's
it like 5 minutes.
She's still in it, though.
Hardly in this movie at all.
Yes.
She's given nothing to do.
Do you want
And
her to
this
wear
is
a cape?
No, but this is a total waste of Jake Gyllenhaal. He is such a great actor. You could look at something like The Sisters Brothers and the performance he did in that movie, and then you look at here, and he's just given nothing to do. I mean, and it's so obvious what's happened. You just see it from a mile away what's going to happen with this character.
You know, in a comic book movie, in a comic book, you can actually flip and see what happens at the end, and then just kind of go through it there.
This is a movie.
Yeah, but
It should act as a movie still. It should still be a movie. It should still be watchable as a movie. It should not be 2.5 hours
It's fun.
long.
It's
got an hour and a half of plot.
Tom Holland really does a really good job, I think, as Spider-Man, but he's very watchable and he's very funny. This one's more lighthearted because of, I think, of Endgame. They're kind of trying to balance it a little bit there.
The other one was too, but the problem is it's essentially the same movie recycled again, because the last one they introduced his, nerd best friend Ned, and they introduced MJ and his, chemistry with her. But then Andy was in school trip in DC, and now he's in a school trip in Europe with his class. It's the exact same plot with a slightly new villain. That's it. I mean, and without Iron Man, but there's still lots of Iron Man because they talk about him constantly. And I have to say, Zendaya, the actress who I really like, who plays MJ, I don't think her and Tom Holland have a lot of chemistry, and they play up the romance part of it a lot in this movie.
I think it's a little awkward because they are teenagers. I think it's a really awkward kind of romance.
It is, but they also
teenagers can have chemistry, romantic chemistry. Please no.
With each other.
I don't want to see that.
But I do like, Jacob Batalon, who plays Ned, kind of steals every scene he's in as the sidekick. I think he's very funny still, and I liked him in the first movie. Tom Holland is a very good Spider-Man, but the movie is just way too long for it. They could have easily cut an hour out of this movie. It did not need to be 2.5 hours.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah, they could have. And the whole thing with the plot of we've got these things that come from, that are like, storms from it was just dumb.
But see, no, I like that because we never dealt with, as they call it in the movie, the Peter tingle, which is really, which is something that your aunt would call it. And so they're dealing with this spider sense, which they hadn't really talked much about in the previous film. So now he's developing that here. And with those drones that come in, that works perfectly. And I really liked how that played out. The last battle I thought was really good. And I really liked whenever the Mysterio kind of character came in. I thought it was really interesting. I like what they had done. And in terms of the big villain, I thought some of that was a little bit Mandarin we had seen kind of before, but sure, that's fine. I think it was a good movie. I like where it's going. I think it's gonna be interesting.
I do not.
But
it seemed like they just rebooted the first one again.
But I like the fact that they deal a lot with the heavy crown that everyone wanting him to be the next Iron Man, and that's a lot to put on a kid. I mean, he's a kid. He's going to be a senior in high school. So I think that's fascinating.
I know that a lot of the superheroes went poof in the other film, but some of them would still, but they all didn't get killed. So, the fact that they just conveniently can't find anyone to help Spider-Man.
That would make it an Avenger film every time.
I know.
You understand that, right? That would make it an Avenger movie every time.
The problem with the way that they've created these films is that because there's all these other characters out there, they have to make up some lame excuse like, oh, yeah, Captain Marvel, she's out of...
No, they don't have to do that. The reason they bring it up here is because he literally is like, can't you get someone else? Because I don't want to do this. I just want to go to MJ to Europe. I'll be gone a week and I'll come back. I promise. Can't you get so-and-so? No, they're off planet. Can't you get so-and-so?
Same in DC. He was on top of all these things, doing the webs and trying to save things. And then all of a sudden, oh, no, he's in Venice doing the exact same things from the last film. It's like, get us a new plot.
He climbs buildings. That's what Spider-Man's doing.
These movies are hundreds of $1 million. Is he going to go on a class field trip for the next film, too? I mean, it's going to be the same plot again. Boring. So
what they should not do in Spider-Man movies is climb buildings and save people.
I didn't say buildings. I said it's like famous landmarks in other cities.
Yeah.
The same thing he did in the last film with a class field trip. The exact same
Yeah, but that
story.
Washington Monument was terrifying because he stood at heights.
If this was any other movie and they just recycled the exact same plot over and over, you would have said that no, it's terrible, it's boring, there's not enough ingenuity put into it. But because it's a Marvel thing, you're just giving it a free pass.
Okay.
2 stars.
That you always at the same time you always give it 2 stars. You always give them 2 stars.
Yeah, because they're
always
2-star movies. They're in focus. I mean, they're competently made. Okay. We'll move on
so now I want to hear about how revolutionary and different this next Spider-Man movie is, and what makes it so different and so good.
Okay. We'll talk about that. So Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is our next film. It came out 2018, and it's now available on streaming. And so we thought we'd review this since we're in a Spider-Man-focused episode here. And this one is focused on a teen named Miles Morales, who happens to cross paths with 5 counterparts from other dimensions. So basically, in this film, their idea is that there's all these other Spider-Men or women or pigs or various other spider folk, as you might call it, in these other dimensions, and they all have to come together to save the universe, of course, because it is a superhero movie, and I get that that's often part of the plot. So this film, I went in very skeptically, even though it was very critically acclaimed, because I'm like, oh gosh, another superhero movie.
They all get over 90% practically.
But the one thing that I would say about it, which you've often pointed out because you love the animated superhero movies, is that it just makes me wish they would do more movies animated, because I did really like that Batman one you showed me. I can't remember the name of it. That was very short also. Because there's so much you can do with animation to create. I mean, this movie, I mean, you see it on the big screen, which I saw it in the theater, and the effects, the way that they did the animation, just the visuals alone to me made it worth the price of admission, even if you didn't get into the story, which I did like.
Yeah.
But the visuals alone were just amazing. 3 stars right there. And then I also really like the way they had all these other little spider people, spider folk, like I said, and different voices. And so then, and the voice of work was really good. So Nicolas Cage playing Spider-Man Noir, who's sort of this black and white track-to-turn Spider-Man who just comes in and, you know, a very, and then Spider-Ham, played by the comedian John Mulaney, who I loved, and he's sort of like a Porky Pig spider character. And they have all these other ones as well.
I didn't know who those characters were. I couldn't keep track of who was from what and what they were trying to do and what their story was. There was too many superheroes that come in, and I just can't tell who is who.
Like they were all
no,
Spider.
I make it sound like you. That's exactly the reviews you give. You have any of those movies, you're like, as soon as they get more than 5 people, you don't know who's who.
There's 5. That's not that hard to keep track of, and they're all completely different.
They're all spider people.
One's a pig.
It's in a spider suit. They're all wearing spider suits. They all look the same.
They all had great personality, which shows that the character development is better than they are in the Avengers movies, where I can't keep track of what
you
the
have
hell's going
no
on.
ground to stand on. You have zero ground to stand on here. That's
movies,
ridiculous.
They're bland in those movies. These characters were characters. They really stood
One
out
was a
to me.
pig. One had a robot. One was in black and
I
white.
could remember. I remembered them when it was over, and there was only 5 to keep track of, not 20.
So ridiculous. Okay, so this movie is a wonderful film. I saw it in the theater actually completely alone, which is a dream come true, but also really sucks. But it was towards the end of its run, so that's fine. It made its money. What I really enjoyed was that Phil Lord and his buddy, who were kicked off of the Han Solo movie, turned around and made this one, and then won an Academy Award for it because it won Best Animated Picture this last year, when the Oscars actually get it right. You have Mahershala Ali, who does a voice, who's also going to be Blade now. He's continuing the Marvel Universe. Yay! And then there's Hailey Steinfeld, who I really enjoy. But Jake Johnson, who's in a TV show called The New Girl that I enjoy, is so good at Peter Parker. That's kind of the failed one that's kind of going through a midlife crisis. I absolutely,
me of Ryan Reynolds bit. That's who he reminded me. Like
he's so good. And what the little things that they do, and you can watch this movie is totally rewatchable several hundred times. But you got to watch it, not just listen to it. But what I really enjoyed was that he was an established character, established Spider-Man. There's 24 frames or however many a second in animated cells. He is animated for all 24. Miles is not a very good Spider-Man. He's still learning. He's an apprentice, so to speak, and he is animated at 12 cells per second. So that's why he's choppy and kind of bouncing and kind of looks like cheaply made animated. They even use it to show the development of the character, which is very, really cool. And sometimes it's just a change of an outfit that shows the development of the character. But anyway, I really enjoyed that. They do a really cool spin, a new spin on a lot of old characters, and I really enjoyed it. It's a really cool film.
Yeah, I could see why it got all the attention it did. I was skeptical going in because I was like, another Spider-Man movie, but it made me wish they would do more. Like
if it hits 90 over 90%, Angela has to see it. It's kind of funny. You're stuck watching all of these, but you didn't see Endgame, and that got like a 97. Had like 400 some odd reviews.
A lot of critics I really hated it. So there you go. Anyway, so to wrap up our show, let's see. We reviewed Wild Rose, which we both highly recommend. Yes. Hail Satan, we both recommend. That sounds bad. Hail Satan.
That's so bad to say out loud.
Spider-Man Far From Home, Brian can recommend. I cannot. And Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, we both recommend. As always, I'd like to, what do we want to do? We want to talk about our website, realfilmsnobs.com. We're on Twitter and Facebook, and don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. We'd like to thank our wonderful sponsors and our amazing crew. You can listen to us on KMUZ, watch us in Corvallis and in Silverton. Did I forget anything?
Corvallis, Silverton, nope.
Okay, thank you for watching. Have a great day and great movies.